Hi, my name is Dan Sokolsky. I'm a certified recovery support specialist with Chestnut Health Systems, and I work with the McLean County ROSC, and we're basically a coalition of volunteers, people with lived experience, professionals, just people looking to give back, who try to bring holistic recovery services to all the people in our community who are seeking mental health or substance use recovery. So with that, today we want to talk about relationships and specifically the cycle of violence. Relationships are one of the biggest reasons we even seek recovery to begin with, right? We have to do it for ourselves, but one of the big rewards, payoffs, is restoring those relationships with our parents, with our spouses, or our children. And so it's important to talk about that. But we also want to educate people about abusive relationships and help those of you who may be entering one or in one kind of understand the warning signs and what to do about it and how to get out and where you can get some help. So the cycle of violence, basically you start, the first phase is this honeymoon stage, also can be referred to as hearts and flowers or manipulation phase. We'll talk about why that is. And this is basically, when people meet and everything's great and it's fine when they don't put the toilet seat up or their burps are kind of cute, just all the little idiosyncrasies are just so charming, things that maybe get annoying over time. But in the honeymoon stage, you have gift giving, you have a lot of affection, you have a lot of energy and excitement. In an unhealthy relationship, also can be referred to as an addictive love relationship. It's basically too much too fast. So a little bit of shakedown street. People in this stage are trying to just jump right in, move in together, telling each other they love each other right away as soon as possible. Talking about kids, from on the first date, that kind of thing. Saying I love you, after knowing each other for not even a week. Things like that. Those are some signs of unhealthy relationship. Some other things, in an unhealthy relationship, just keeping score as far as, who's doing what and who owes what to who. Dishonesty. A big one that has to do with abuse is isolating, yourself from your loved ones and families so that the abuser is the only person in your life and you have to rely on that person for everything. Cheating and lying, drudging up the past, having resentments, jealousy, bitterness, all signs of unhealthy relationship. In a healthy relationship, this honeymoon stage is more about taking it slow and steady to build kindness and bonding, building trust, loyalty, love, honesty, affection, being faithful, all these things, so that when tension does rise in a relationship and stress is introduced, a healthy couple has the means to, and maturity to work through it, as opposed to get in abusive situations. Honeymoon stage, this is where everything's great. Again, we'll talk about it more as this cycle continues. The thing to know about the honeymoon stage is the abuser or the unhealthy relationship is always trying to get back to this honeymoon phase. It's not about moving past things and moving on and learning how to deal with stressors. Everything's fine when we're in this honeymoon stage and things are superficial and it's more about physical than emotional, and something to be aware of. So the next stage is the tension building, also can be referred to as the tightrope stage. So the next stage we have is the tightrope or tension building, and this is basically a relationship is starting to get real. Stressors are introduced as a relationship becomes longer term. Housing, children, just finances in general, childcare, jobs, family, in-laws, other people's, can be stressful for some, bills, insurance, whatever it is that is causing stress, a lot of fighting, arguments, quote unquote fighting in a relationship is not inherently bad, if it's being done respectfully, assertively. My parents would argue from time to time as a kid, and sometimes it would get loud, but it was never beyond that. And when it was done, it was done. I don't remember it ever carrying over into the next day. It was never abusive, but my mom, my dad would say what they had to say about something, and that was the way people kind of just dealt with it then. And they're married now almost 60 years still, so it works. It's just when it gets into demeaning, obviously if it gets physical, if it becomes just insulting, purposeless, then you're in a situation where we're looking at, mental and psychological abuse potentially. A lot of the tension building is the target or abused person trying to appease the abuser. So say it's a guy telling his girlfriend, I don't want you wearing that out, or, I don't want you going out with your friends, or I don't want you talking to so-and-so anymore. And, no matter what the person does to appease their abuser, it's never going to be enough. The abuser will always find something to nitpick because that is their decision, because it's all about having power and control. And they've done this before with others, most certainly. And they wield abuse as a tool to gain power and control over people. The types of abuse vary. Again, there's physical, hitting, shoving, punching, kicking. There's psychological and mental and emotional abuse. I'm probably leaving off one or two more. Also, a rule of thumb, if you're in a situation and thinking that you're going to change the person, and they've hit you before, but they're different now, they promised. Rule of thumb, probably once an abuser, always an abuser. Not going to sit here and say people can't change. We know that's true in recovery. People do change, but best just caution with safety. And if you're in a situation like that, try to get out of it. And that can be difficult too. So we'll hopefully point you to some resources at the end here in case there's somebody who can't take no for an answer or won't accept a breakup. So in this tightrope tension building, you either have a healthy relationship that works through it and just kind of gets past it, or deals with these circumstances and comes up with a budget and comes up with a plan for driving kids and buys a house and gets a mortgage and kind of just they move on in a healthy way. But in a abusive relationship, this is basically going to a boiling point and it's going to explode. And the third phase is the explosion, and this is where the actual abuse is occurring. And we can keep this pretty simple here. So the third phase is the explosion. Again, this is where the abuse actually occurs. Once that does happen, say in this example, it's a physical abuse, a hitting or something, it's immediately followed by apologies and promises, resolutions to never do it again, lavishing the person with gifts, flowers, cars, vacations, sending, that's where we get back to, and it's trying to get back to this second honeymoon phase again, right? The abuser is treating the target probably very similar to when they first met, trying to prove what a great person they are, right? Sending flowers to work so everybody can see what a charmer he or she is. And of course, with the second honeymoon phase, it's again more promises that are lies. The abuser will try to further entrench themselves into your life so that you're even more dependent on them, further isolating away loved ones, almost like a cult. That's what a cult will do, try and brainwash you into you don't need your family in your life, they're bad for you, they're negative, you need to be with us. And it's a similar kind of mentality. So, hey, maybe I'll co-sign a car loan for you, or let's have another kid, just something that gets them closer together than further away. And again, that's part of the manipulation phase that we talked about in the honeymoon at the beginning as well. And a lot of times the intimacy can actually deepen between the target and the abuser. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome effect where the abuser, there's like a bonding that happens over it, the apologies and the crying and the making up, it's somehow fortifies an unhealthy relationship and mirrors it as a reconciliation actually occurring, when really the abuser is just biding the time till stress gets bad again, and it's just, since it's a cycle, repeats over and over, the tension builds, the explosion, the abuse happens again, trying to get back to the honeymoon phase where everything's superficial and cool, and it's just over and over, and the abuse will typically increase, the cycle will shorten, it happens more often, and there's, unfortunately, sometimes the only way out is through death. So that's why we feel it's important to educate people on this, and we will have some phone numbers and resources of places you can call if you're in an abusive relationship right now. One thing I did want to point out is this cycle of violence or cycle of abuse actually mimics the recovery and relapse stage quite a bit, where one comes out and say somebody goes to treatment or they're early in recovery and they're hitting meetings and they're riding that, they're feeling what some may call this pink cloud, you know. That's kind of like the honeymoon stage. I've been sober for the first time in, 15 years and it feels so good and I love this, and then life starts getting lively as you go on with your recovery, and those stressors and the tension building stage start to set in, whether it's something with relationships or trouble at work, trouble with parenting, just whatever it might be. A good recovery with a good sponsor who's working a solid program, like a healthy relationship, will work through that tension phase and that tightrope phase, and they will learn from it and continue with their recovery journey and be stronger for it. However, somebody who's not solid in their program, those stressors start getting introduced into their life and that tension builds and they will use again, relapse. That's the explosion phase, if we're trying to draw a parallel. And it's very similar where maybe it's more internalized, but it's a lot of that same remorse and resolutions to not do it again and making promises to people and trying to get back to that honeymoon phase, that pink cloud where everything was good again. And maybe I got to get back to treatment to, sort of hit that reset button. And that's fine, but, so there are some similarities that I think are interesting. But again, it's about getting ourselves to a place through pro-social skills, through counseling and therapy, through work in a recovery program to, where we have the maturity and character to have stress in a relationship or in our life and be able to work through it and not lash out or go back to drinking and using or take it out on innocent people. So hopefully this was educational. So lastly, I want to try and link you with some resources if you are in a situation like this. We don't want to give you a bunch of information, have you concerned, and then not give you any next steps. First thing, obviously easier said than done. We realize this. Try to end the relationship amicably. In an abusive relationship, that typically is not possible. And sometimes people just need to leave the situation and, in the middle of the night, whatever, to get out of that. And we also realize that's easier said than done if you're relying on that person for rent or finances or housing. So if it's a situation where there's just no easy way out, talk to someone. You can contact the McLean County ROSC and we can get you connected with some of the proper domestic violence services in town. And that is McLean County ROSC at chestnut.org. One-on-one counseling, couples counseling might be an option if you feel the other person would even be receptive to it. That could be a trigger for them as well. There are national hotlines. Seek treatment if you need it, if substance use is at the root of a lot of the abuse going on and the unhealthy stuff in the relationship. Get yourself well, and you get 28 days or so to reevaluate and be around healthy people and situations and kind of get a new perspective on your life and your relationships. In town, Neville House has a domestic violence shelter along with YWCA Labyrinth House. And there's additional resources on the screen here and some phone numbers. So we just want to thank you for your time. If you did get something out of this, please hit the like button, consider subscribing. We are grateful as always, and don't be a stranger. We're always looking for help. We always have events we're looking for people to help us organize, doing videos like this on any particular topic of interest or passion to you. And I think that's about it. So thank you very much, and y'all take care. Bye-bye.